Equestria Goes Metric. Written by CartsBeforeHorses. Ponies from all over Ponyville gathered in the meeting room of the town hall. Voices and murmurs filled the crowd as they waited. Mare walked up to the podium and spoke to the crowd. Fillies and gentle colts, Princess Twilight Sparkle has an announcement to make. The ponies in the crowd clapped as the young alicorn took the stage, a stack of notes floating in her telekinesis. Thankfully, Twilight had learned from her prior speeches that were far too lengthy. This time, she prepared a reasonably sized stack of notes, 153 pages, as opposed to 154. Baby steps. "Thank you all for coming," said Twilight Sparkle, smiling. The applause quietened down as she began her speech. "Since I became princess, I have hardly exercised my power at all. I felt that I needed to grow into the role. But now, nearly a year after ascending to becoming an alicorn and being crowned, I am ready to issue my first royal decree." There was scattered applause, the ponies not knowing what to expect. Most of them only knew Twilight as just the town librarian, and now that the library had been destroyed, the town alicorn with tacky Crystal Castle. They weren't used to her ordering them around. Well, except for that one time that she had hypnotized them all so she wouldn't be late on an assignment and disappoint Princess Celestia. And then that other time when she had demanded the town be safety-proofed to stop an impending future disaster. Other than that, though, she wasn't too much of a control freak. She continued, "For many years, Equestria has needed to make a change. We've been putting it off for a while now. As a student, I'm not immune to procrastination, but Equestria now stands alone as the last country to do this. Over the years, my friends and I have saved the land from perpetual darkness, chaos, and enslavement. Now it's time to save the land from inefficiency. But this inefficiency isn't a villain to be blasted with magical beams. It will require every last one of us to alter the way we do things. So as princess and scholar, I believe it's finally time." She paused and took a breath. The room was so quiet you could hear Pinkie Pie's rapid, irregular heartbeat. "For Equestria to convert to the metric system." All of a sudden, the metaphorical valve burst, and noise and chatter flooded the room as ponies muttered. Twilight motioned with her hoof for everyone to be quiet. "I know that it will be difficult to change, but many other countries have made the switch. Trotland, Australia, even our northern neighbours in the Crystal Empire. Once we are all using metric, we would never want to go back. It's easy, and there's no need to remember how many hooves in a mile or how many quarts in a gallon. Everything is just in tens. Sure, it might be an inconvenience at first to learn a new system, but it's a one-time cost, and we will continue to reap benefits from it indefinitely. But before I use a royal decree to make this change, I wanted to open this up to comment from the public." A hoof shot up in the back of the room. "Yes, Cheerly?" Cheerly said, "I, for one, support the change. It's always a hassle to teach students to use both the equestrian customary measurements and the metric measurements. When we're just using one system, then I can spend more time teaching valuable things, like lessons on how to get a cutie mark, even though most students in my class already have them." A few of the ponies in the room nodded in approval. Another hoof went in the air. "Yes, Davenport?"
"I'm also in support. As the proprietor of Davenport's Quills, Sofas and Rulers, I could sure use the extra business from ponies all coming in to buy new meter sticks."
Twilight raised an eyebrow. "You do rulers now?" Davenport chuckled.
"Yes, it was really hard to pay the bills just doing quills and sofas, especially in a small town where most ponies already have both and don't replace them very often. So I decided to expand my offerings to another obscure, rarely purchased product."
Good call?" said Twilight. Two hooves shot up from Mr. and Mrs. Cake.
"Sugar Cube Corner opposes the change,"
said Mr. Cake, his brow furrowed. "All of our recipes are in tablespoons, teaspoons, pints, and quarts. Our oven is in Fahrenheit. Our customers buy goods by the pound and ounce.
Do you have any idea how much it would cost for us to convert all of that over? We're bakers, not mathematicians."
Miss Cake nodded. "If Equestria converts to metric, then we'll have to change pound cake's name to kilogram cake.
and he'll have to grow twice as big. And then we won't be able to make puns about him pounding things, and his name won't start with a P like his sister's," said Mr. Cake. "But what if tourists from a foreign country come to Sugarcube Corner and they're confused? Every other country in the world has already switched over to metric," said Twilight Sparkle. "If every other country in the world jumped off a cliff, would you do it?" asked Mrs. Cake. Other ponies in the crowd nodded in approval. Another hoof shot up. "Yes, Applejack? The equestrian system is traditional. Y'all can't go changing things around. It's our national pride," Rarity said. "I agree with Applejack and the Cakes. I also oppose this. When making dresses at Carousel Boutique, I measure my customers' sizes in inches. I order my fabric in hooves and yards. Ponies are reluctant to change. The system of measurement is much like fashion. It can't be updated on a mere whim." Twilight threw her hooves up. "But fashion is always changing on a whim. Remember last summer? When being unseasonable became trendy, and every pony started wearing scarves and stocking caps, even though it was 35 degrees out?" Ponies muttered in confusion. Twilight clarified. 35 Celsius, not Fahrenheit. Oh. Every pony in the room said at once. "I'll only support the change if I get to make up my own wacky units, like Kilo Funnies, or Happy Grams, or Utils." Ignoring Pinkie Pie, Twilight said, "We have to quit using antiquated units. We're living in the modern era, the age of science. We need scientific measurements based off on unchanging principles of nature, like the distance that light travels in a vacuum, or the mass of a fixed volume of water. I mean, do we really want to be using measurements based on the weight of Princess Celestia's crown or the width of the Princess Celestia's hoof? I think, what's that about my hoof?" All the ponies turned towards the doorway. There stood the towering form of the princess, exactly 1 Celestia tall. Twilight Sparkle turned beet red in the presence of her personal mentor, the Supreme Princess of Equestria, who she would never ever want to disappoint. Twilight stammered, I was just, Celestia asked, "Do ponies no longer wish to measure based off the width of my hoof?" "Oh, we do, don't we, every pony?" asked Twilight, grinning sheepishly. Everyone in the crowd nodded. "Yeah, totally." Princess Celestia smiled. "That's good to hear," she said. "I'm glad that my subjects are happy with the measurement system I created for them." "Sorry about wasting your time, Ponyville," said Twilight Sparkle. Her head hung low as she left the stage. Everyone filed out of the room, and thus Equestria remained non-metric forever. I personally, to be honest, math is not my strong suit, and I actually do prefer cups, even though I was raised in the UK. What's even more confusing, though, is the UK's measurements, because we use both. Technically, we only use metric, but for certain things, we will use non-metric things. For instance, for a long time, at least when I was a kid, we measured height in feet and inches, even though, we have meter sticks. So when I was a kid, we had to learn both, because in the country we were living in, we might have to handle doing both and convert both. It was very confusing. Very, very confusing. Just wait till Twilight hears about pints, or how we measure different distances depending on what you're doing. So I think Twilight would have more of an issue with the UK than Equestria. That was Equestria Goes Metric, written by CartsBeforeHorses. I hope you all enjoyed, and keep watching that moon, everyone. Bye!
We here at Pony&Wolf Productions thank these amazing patrons of ours for their monthly support, without which all of this would not be possible. We sincerely appreciate it, and every dollar helps, is needed, and will be used to keep us going to produce audiobooks for your continued enjoyment. It is, now more than ever, important that you support your favorite creators if possible, due to YouTube changing in a way that is not very friendly to content creators. Especially small content creators, like us. In recent months, the names you see on screen have enabled Midnight and Visual Pony to keep going and only having to sell off part of their belongings to not end up on the street. As an incentive for everyone, Visual Pony has broken a vow and has promised to read and record Fallout Equestria, Murky number 7, should the monthly support reach $1,500. To be clear, this is the absolute minimum amount needed to keep the apartment and all bills paid without starving, while a production of this size is ongoing. The estimated time for this production would be 3 to 4 years, but people already said that Project Horizons was impossible to do, right? And now look who did it, so with Pony and Wolf, you know we can finish the job. For further information on how to support us, please have a look at the description of this video, as there are also other ways, like our merch store. Sincerely and forever yours, your Pony and Wolf team.